Hey everyone, my name is Travis and I'm here at my studio located in Nashville, Tennessee. The thing that I think got me most into the music production world was learning how to play instruments from a fairly young age. I think I started piano lessons in 4th grade and then moved to cello a year later. I was pretty terrible at both, but I did actually end up playing trumpet for a long time, and I excelled quite a bit at that, and got all the way up to playing an all-state band and getting like Division I ratings in a lot of the solo ensemble stuff that I did. And I think that really was kind of my real intro into playing music, but also into listening to music too. You know, if you've never been in a band or in a choir, you know that you need to listen to everyone around you to kind of blend yourself in and be part of the ensemble. So I was learning how to do that from a fairly young age and then got very good at it. Around that time in high school, I picked up a guitar and started teaching myself how to play guitar by listening to music and learning how to play by ear. And I would do that for trumpet too. Like I would take the Lord of the Rings soundtracks and play a lot of the melodic lines that you hear that are part of that soundtrack. So I took all of those things and kind of started developing my ear. And when I discovered Pro Tools as a sophomore in high school, I took everything that I kind of was doing as a musician at that point and started applying that to recording and making music in the computer, which was a lot of fun. In regards to the studio that we're in, I actually was able to buy a studio last May in 2017. And I did hire a studio designer and builder to kind of come up with the plans for what could happen in this room. And like I said, it already was an existing studio, so I kind of took things down to the walls and then built it out again. But yeah, so we went through the planning phase. It took about a month or so to build, so officially this room opened up in about mid-June of 2017 of last year. So I've almost been here a full year, depending on when you're watching this video. And it's been really great ever since. I absolutely love working in here. It's a big step up from the other studios that I had run out of apartment buildings, which were not very ideal. I get distracted fairly easily. So when you're trying to, say, mix a song in an apartment, when there's a lot of other noises and distractions and roommates, doing things around the apartment, it's just hard to get, great quality work done in a timely fashion. Here I can really do whatever I want. It's very distraction-free for the most part, so I'm able to focus on what I'm working on. And just because it's a purpose-built room, my quality of work has gone up a lot. This is a fully treated, designed, built-out studio to be great for mixing, as that's what I mainly do here. And it really shows. I'm doing some of my best work right now because of what this room has been able to do for me. And the modern system that I have set up has been very essential as well. Obviously, there's tons of hardware out there. There's a lot of great pieces that I've loved to use and have used in other studios, but I'm going to pick something that I own because I actually own very little hardware. But the things that I do own, one of them being the Dramastic Audio Obsidian 500 stereo compressor, which is an SSL style compressor. They do make a version of this for a 19-inch rack mount. I have the 500 series because I had open slots on my lunchbox. But it's great. It literally is the mix bus compressor on pretty much every mix that I do in about the year that I've owned it. It's got a lot of extra features that you would not necessarily find in a standard traditional SSL bus style compressor. It's got a high pass filter sidechain, which is great. It's got some additional ratios and some other stuff. It is transformer based, which is really, really cool. All in all, a really great mix bus compressor that really suits my needs and what I like my mixes to sound like, and it does a great job on my mix bus. In terms of favorite plugins, in general, I'm a huge fan of the Universal Audio products. They make, in my opinion, some of the best sounding plugins available, and I use them excessively all over my mixes. I'm up to 12 cores of UAD now, which is great, so I'm able to run more instances of their products and able to, get my mixes to sound better, arguably speaking. But honestly, I'd have to say my favorite plugin really is the FabFilter Pro Q2, which has been my workhorse parametric EQ for quite a while now. The thing that I love about it is it can just kind of do everything. It can be very broad and smooth and wideband, or it can really get down and be very surgical and remove problems in a source that might be there. Another great plugin that I just want to mention because it's so cool is one that I discovered a little while ago called Soothe, and it's from a company that I think is called Oak Sound, but it's spelled O-A-K Sound. And Soothe is actually spelled S-O-O-T-H with an E on the end. If you've not heard of Soothe yet, I highly recommend checking it out. It helps me a lot to restore the fidelity of audio that may have been captured poorly or recorded in a less than ideal environment, and it's able to remove some problem issues from a sound that traditional EQ and even multiband compression don't do very well. So that's been a great tool for me to help restore audio that doesn't sound as good as it probably should in the mix phase. I've been a Pro Tools guy since I started doing this quite a while ago. I discovered Pro Tools in about 10th grade, which I think I may have already mentioned. I'm running Pro Tools version 10, which is very outdated at this point. I do plan, hopefully at some point here very soon, to update to a newer version of Pro Tools in addition to updating my iOS software on my Mac behind me. The reason I like it, first of all, I've been using it for forever, so I'm the most familiar with it. I can do everything that I want to do in it. There are things about it and about Avid that I'm not super pumped about, but I would not be able to do the level of work that I'm doing in another DAW very quickly. Instead of trying to learn another DAW and adapt all my mixing techniques to another piece of software, I'm sticking with Pro Tools, at least for the foreseeable future, because I just like how my workflow has developed in it. Some of the biggest names that I've worked with. In the studio world, probably the biggest name I've worked with at this point is a band. I mixed a record for a band called May, who formerly was on Tooth and Nail and then moved to Capitol Records, and kind of in that emo rock phase and stuff. And I actually started touring with them when they did the 10th anniversary of the Everglow tour, which was a couple years ago now, and I acted as the tour manager and front of house engineer, mixing engineer for that tour. And then about a year later, they asked me to mix their self-titled record, which has been out now a couple of years, I think. Don't even really remember. So that was a really fun project to be on. Really happy with the work that went into that and stuff, and it got printed to limited edition vinyl, which is super cool. Another thing that I'm working on right now is I'm working on a record for a band called Bunkface and doing the mixes for them. And I wasn't familiar with them until I did a little research and they hired me. But they are very large in a lot of the Asian markets, as they are from Malaysia, and they're doing super well over there. So I get to mix one of their records, and I'm currently working on those mixes as we speak. And again, like I said, they're a fairly big name, even though I've never heard of them before, because they are half a world away from me, which is kind of awesome, I think. In addition to that, I mentioned that I have done a fair bit of touring. I tour a lot as a front of house mixing engineer, and some of the other names I've worked with just in that part of the market is I've mixed shows for May, as I mentioned, Michael W. Smith, John Paul White, Rodney Atkins, Apollo LTD, Remedy Drive, Low Roar, Everfound, and quite a few other talented bands and artists. So it's kind of fun to be able to do both. I love working here in the studio, but every once in a while I love to get out on a tour and work with an artist. Okay, my biggest studio pet peeve is a couple different things. Mainly because I do mixing, I get to see a song in its nearly complete phase. Everything ideally has been recorded at this point, and it's ready to be put together, essentially, and that's kind of what I do as a mix engineer. But what I see a lot of times is files get sent to me in sometimes fairly poor condition, where there's bad edits, bad fades, parts of audio are missing, breaths are cut out, there's clicks and pops, phasing issues, just a number of different things that could have been addressed in the recording process or the production process that would have made the song a lot better than me trying to have to fix it on the nearly back end of the song. And those types of things kind of frustrate me because they're relatively easy fixes. And when you leave them for someone like a mix engineer to fix, you're generally not going to get as good of a final product because I'm having to compensate for all of these corrections, and it's just not ever going to be as good as if the song came in super well produced, it sounds amazing, the raw audio is like, could be the final mix almost, and then going from there and making your mix and then of course master. That's the way great songs are made. When you're having to fix tons of problems in the mixing stage, you're just never going to get a product that sounds as good as the best stuff out there. So that stuff grinds my gears a lot because, it really limits your potential on a song. And so it's why I always try to encourage young producers and young engineers to really take the time and be detail orientated and really look and listen to the stuff that we're recording to make sure that everything is sounding what it needs to be, so that when you send it to your mix engineer, they can just do their job and not have to spend time fixing little mistakes here and there. The best advice for someone I can give, I think, in the industry is first and foremost, obviously study your craft, practice, whatever that is, whether if you want to be a producer, an engineer, a musician, you have to invest time in that craft and putting, effort into being the best you can be at that. However, there's also a side of this which isn't as often talked about, and that's just the business of being in the industry. You might offer a service, and say that I have a studio and I can do this for you, but all the things that kind of, go behind that of, how are you marketing that? How are you dealing with deposits and scheduling and all of these other kind of businessy aspects, are often overlooked. And I think a lot of times that's why studios fail, or people fail at doing this, is because they don't account for the business side of the industry. And it's super important. Like, you can't offer a service if you don't have the business stuff solid. You're just not going to last very long. So really look at, how to run a small business, especially in the music industry, and those types of questions will get you a lot further than asking, like, what compressor I used on my vocal, kind of a saying. This is kind of a unique question, and I have a unique answer for it. Really, when it comes from me and being influenced, I really just listen to music and let music influence me. That's kind of the way it's always been, as you've heard a little bit of my story up till now. Is a lot of it's just been the driving force behind what I've done is just listening to great music. And so what I do even to this day is I'll come down here a lot of times when I'm not working and just listen to music and consume a lot of different types of music, of different genres, different mixers, different producers, and really kind of come up with a palette of sounds per se of like, hey, I really like this sound and this idea and the way these drums sound. And I can kind of put all these things in my head, and when I am mixing a record for a client, I'm able to kind of think back and apply a lot of these sounds and ideas that I've listened for in other music. Getting a little more specific, I really don't have a favorite mixer or producer per se. There's a lot of great folks out there that I really like to hear what they have to do most of the time. So I couldn't really put like this person's my favorite mixer. However, I did get the chance to be mentored by a guy named Ryan Hewitt a couple years ago, and I was able to spend a couple days a week in the studio with Ryan for several months, learning from him and how he approaches his mixes, how he interacts with his clients and handles things like mix revisions and whatever might come across his desk on any given day. And I think that for me was the biggest step and biggest launching point of my career, is being able to learn from someone who has had a lot of success in the industry from a very direct level. And if you don't know who Ryan is, he has worked with bands such as Red Hot Chili Peppers, who he won a Grammy with for mixing and engineering, for Stadium Arcadium. He's also mixed records for Blink-182 and engineered for them, as well as the Avett Brothers, Brandi Carlile, Need to Breathe, Flogging Molly, bunch of other amazing rock groups. And so, as you can tell, it was a really big thing to be able to learn from someone of his caliber. Artists that I want to work with, pretty much any artist I grew up listening to as a kid. Paramore is a prime example for this. I would love to listen to Paramore, especially in high school. I love pretty much everything they've ever put out. It's all fantastic, and it would be a huge win for me to mix a Paramore record someday. Especially when Ken Andrews, if you don't know Ken, go check him out, when he mixed one of their records and really kind of took a leap and beat out some other big name guys, in kind of his smaller studio. That was super cool to see that. So I kind of love all those kind of like emo rock bands, that were kind of more popular in, say, 2010. Not that Paramore isn't popular anymore, but they've changed more to a pop band than anything else. Also, I love, artists like Justin Timberlake. If I could work on a record with him, that'd be amazing. I love his sense of musicality and ingenuity when it comes to production and sounds and layering. Like, he just has a brilliant musical mind. and so it'd be a really cool thing to work on music with JT. And I mean, there's so many great artists out there that are doing cool things that, you know, I'd be honored to work on a record with. All right, kind of the last thing here as we're wrapping up. If you want to find out how to hire me to mix a record, you can visit my website, which is travisballmixing.com. And on there, there's a request a quote form. Fill that out, send it off. It goes to me and my manager, and we're able to then follow up with you and discuss, you know, the details of whatever you would like me to mix. And that's the best way to get a hold of me. Also, if you're not following me on Instagram, I'd love for you to do that. Just search for Travis Ball Mixing on Instagram. Give me a follow. I post a lot of content on there daily of what I'm working on, you know, what's going on here in the studio, and just other little random stuff that I might encounter on a day-to-day basis. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to do more of these soon, and I'll talk to you guys later. Cheers.